Rest can start to feel dangerous when your worth is tied to motion. You finish one task and another appears. You answer one message and feel the pull of the next. You sit down for a moment and almost immediately something in you says, "Not yet. You haven't done enough." So rest becomes delayed, then negotiated, then earned only in tiny doses, not as a natural part of living, but as a reward for performance. And because the standard keeps moving, the reward keeps moving too. Maybe later tonight, maybe after the weekend, maybe after this project, maybe after you finally become the kind of person who deserves to slow down. This is the strange burden many people carry without naming it. The feeling that peace must be purchased with productivity, that stillness must be justified, that if you stop too soon, you are irresponsible, weak, falling behind, wasting time, becoming less lovable, less admirable, less real. This video is a direct check on that structure. Not an argument against work, not an excuse for collapse, not a romantic speech about doing nothing. Something simpler. A question. What if rest is not a prize at the end of your usefulness? What if rest belongs to life in the same way breath belongs to life? And what if the one who thinks rest must be earned is not what you are most deeply? This matters because once rest becomes a reward, your whole life starts to tighten around scarcity. You stop receiving stillness. You manage it. You stop resting because rest is needed. You rest only when the inner judge signs the form. And often, even then, you do not truly rest. You pause with guilt. You lie down with tension. You take time off while secretly accusing yourself for taking it. The body is still, but the self is still on trial. So let's begin where we always begin in this work. Not with belief, but with a direct check. Right now, let your eyes settle on something in front of you. A lamp, a wall, a cup, a screen. There it is. Shape, color, texture, the visible scene. Now, gently point toward it, just to confirm the obvious. There is something there, and it is seen. Then, slowly turn the pointing around. Point back to where you are looking from. Not toward your chest, not toward the idea of your face. Point to the place you are looking out of. What do you actually find there? Do you find a machine that must justify stopping? Do you find a worker's self at the center, tense and efforting, trying to deserve existence? Or do you find something simpler? Openness, awake capacity, a clear space in which the whole scene appears. At zero distance, before the next story rushes in, there is no visible worker here, no visible resume, no visible score, no visible badge that says, "worthy of rest," or "not yet worthy." There is seeing, there is hearing, there is awareness of thoughts, sensations, pressure, fatigue, resistance. And all of it is appearing in a capacity that is already at rest in one important sense. It does not strain to be aware. Awareness does not clock in. This is not mystical. It is immediate. The mind may be busy. The body may be tired. The day may be full. But the field in which all of that appears is not earning itself moment by moment. It is simply present. That matters more than it first seems, because the habit of earning rest begins with a collapse. It confuses your practical human responsibilities with your right to soften. It says, because there is more to do, you do not get to release. Because the list remains unfinished, you must remain unfinished with it. And over time, that becomes identity. Not, there is more work today, but I am the kind of person who must never fully stop. This is where suffering grows. The original need may have been simple. Finish the task, meet the deadline, take care of the family, survive the pressure, prove reliability. But the system learns the wrong lesson. It learns that stillness is suspicious, that rest is only safe after overperformance. That piece must wait for permission. And perhaps you can feel how deep this goes. Maybe you are not merely tired. Maybe you are scared to rest. Scared of what will happen if you stop producing. Scared of being seen as lazy. Scared of falling behind. Scared of meeting feelings that productivity helped you outrun. Scared that if you are not useful, you may not know who you are. So let's not answer that fear too quickly. Let's look closely. When the thought appears, I haven't done enough to rest, what exactly is here? A thought, yes. Maybe a tightening in the chest. Maybe pressure in the forehead. Maybe a restless impulse to check one more thing, send one more reply, clean one more corner, improve one more detail. Good. Let all that be here. Now use a very simple practice. Label and knower. Label the appearance softly. Pressure. Planning. Guilt. Urgency. Fear. Then ask, what knows this? Do not answer with a theory. Do not say, I do. Look. If an image appears of you being lazy or irresponsible, that image is known. If a thought appears saying, you should be doing more, that thought is known. If body tension appears, that too is known. So stay with the experiment. What is the knower itself? Can it be found as an object? Does it have a schedule? Does it have a performance review? Does it get more real when you achieve more? Or is it simply the open capacity in which achievement and fatigue alike appear? This is where something begins to soften, not because your responsibilities disappear, not because you suddenly no longer care, but because you stop grounding your right to pause in the voice of the judge. You begin to see that rest is not a reward for the self-image. It is part of sane functioning inside life. In other words, the body may need recovery long before the ego is ready to approve it. And if you wait for the ego to approve it, you may wait forever. Because the ego often does not want restoration. It wants reassurance. It wants the feeling of being ahead, secured, validated, untouchable. And rest cannot provide that. Rest does something quieter and more honest. It returns you to what remains when striving loosens. That can feel beautiful. It can also feel threatening. Because many people build their identity out of tension. Tension feels like seriousness, control, goodness, commitment. So when they stop, they do not immediately feel peaceful. They feel exposed. Nothing is wrong here. This is one of the great confusions around rest. We think if rest were right, it would instantly feel comfortable. Not necessarily. Sometimes the first layer of rest is discomfort, because the momentum of self-management is still moving. You lie down and the mind gets louder. You sit still and unfinished thoughts come forward. You stop working and the old fear says, now prove that this pause is deserved. So again, the task is not to force calm. It is to relocate what you are. Return to the direct check. Here is the room. Here is the breath. Here are thoughts. Here is the pressure to justify stillness. And here, at zero distance, is the awake capacity in which all of that appears. Rest becomes possible when you stop trying to rest as a guilty object and begin to notice the openness that is already not in conflict with experience. Now, let's bring this into ordinary life. Maybe you finish work for the day, but you keep scanning for more. Not because anything urgent remains, but because ending feels unsafe. Maybe you sit with a loved one, but cannot really arrive because inwardly you are still serving the invisible manager. Maybe you try to enjoy a quiet morning, but a voice says, this would be better if you had already earned it. Maybe you turn hobbies into productivity, healing into productivity, spirituality into productivity. Even rest becomes one more thing to optimize. Better sleep score, better morning routine, better nervous system, better stillness, better recovery. Notice the pattern. The mind takes something simple and turns it into another ladder. The same thing happens in spirituality. The self that once said, "I will rest when I have done enough," now says, "I will rest when I am present enough, healed enough, conscious enough." Same trap, better vocabulary. So the Headless Way offers something more basic. Instead of asking, "Have I earned rest?" ask, "What is here now, and what knows it?" If exhaustion is here, let exhaustion be here. If guilt is here, let guilt be here. If resistance is here, let resistance be here. You do not need to become peaceful before resting. You do not need to clear the mind before stopping. The sky does not require clear weather in order to remain the sky. Likewise, awareness does not need tidy conditions in order to hold the moment. And now a second experiment, two-way seeing. Look at the room around you, the chair, the floor, the walls, the light, the screen. Normally, it feels like you are a worker self inside the head, looking out at a world full of demands. Tasks are out there. People are out there. Expectations are out there. And you, the small central manager, must hold it all together. But pause and notice. The whole scene is appearing in awareness. The world is not only out there, it is also here, given in this open capacity. Now include the inner pressure, the thought, "I should do more," the sense, "I'm wasting time," the image of yourself failing some invisible standard. Where do these appear? Also here, also in the same openness. This matters because it changes the center of gravity. Instead of being a cramped self crushed by demands, you begin to notice the entire drama of productivity and permission appearing in awareness. And from here, there is more room. The room does not remove your responsibilities. It allows you to meet them without becoming them. This is the heart of it. Work is not the problem. Using work to earn the right to exist softly is the problem. Effort is not the problem. The problem is making peace conditional on performance. Now, let's go further. Why does the mind turn rest into a prize? Because reward psychology feels safer than trust. If rest must be earned, then life remains controllable. Do enough, get rest. Fail to do enough, no rest. It is harsh, but at least it is clear. Trust is different. Trust says the body has limits. The mind has limits. Attention has limits. Life moves in cycles. Rest is not a bonus after the machine performs well enough. Rest is one of the conditions that make sane functioning possible. That kind of trust can feel vulnerable because it means you do not get to hide inside endless postponement. You have to feel the tiredness before it becomes collapse. You have to admit that enough for today may not feel impressive. You have to stop asking the inner judge for signatures it was never going to give. This is where the mirror check helps. In the mirror, you see a person, a face, a role, someone who can be evaluated. The mirror is useful. It shows appearance. But it does not show what you are at zero distance. Look away from the mirror now, or imagine doing so. Right where you are, do you see the overworked self who must earn softness? Do you see the image that gets graded by culture, family, ambition, and comparison? Or do you find the world appearing in a kind of faceless clarity? This difference is not small. The mirror self is what gets measured. The zero-distance reality is what lives. When you forget this, you start serving the image. You manage appearances. You optimize worth. You chase proof that you deserve to be gentle with yourself. When you remember this, something else becomes possible. You can care for the human life without worshiping the image of the human life. You can rest because rest is needed, not because your image has finally been approved. This has practical consequences. So let's make it plain. Logistics, No mysticism. How do you stop turning rest into a reward? Not by waiting for a more spiritual mood. Not by shaming yourself for being ambitious. Not by pretending the body has no limits. Try 3 simple moves. First, separate need from permission. Instead of asking, "Have I earned a break?" ask, "What does this organism honestly need right now?" Water? Food? Silence? Sleep? A walk? 10 minutes without input? 1 evening without self-improvement? Keep it concrete. Second, use clean language. Not, "I'm being lazy." Try, "I'm depleted." Not, "I should be able to push through." Try, "My system needs recovery." Not, "I'll rest when everything is done." Try, "Some things will remain unfinished, and rest is still necessary." This is not indulgence, it is accuracy. Third, practice stopping before collapse. Most people only respect rest when the body forces it. Illness, burnout, resentment, numbness, panic, shutdown. But by then, the system has already been overruled too many times. So begin earlier, not because you are fragile, because you are not a machine. And if this is helping, subscribe. Not because more content will make you worthy of rest, but because reminders like this can interrupt the old trance when productivity starts pretending to be identity again. And if someone you know is quietly exhausted from trying to deserve every moment of softness, share this with them. Now there is another layer we should not skip. Sometimes overworking is not really about achievement. Sometimes it is about avoidance. As long as you stay busy, you do not have to feel grief. As long as you stay productive, you do not have to feel loneliness. As long as you are useful, you do not have to face the fear that without output, you may not know who you are. So rest can feel like exposure. You stop moving and old weather becomes visible. Sadness, anger, emptiness, unmet longing. Again, nothing is wrong. This does not mean rest is bad. It means rest reveals what momentum was hiding. So do not treat the first discomfort of stillness as failure. Let it be part of the entry. Let rest begin clumsily if it must. Let silence be noisy at first. Let the nervous system learn, slowly, that stopping is not a crime. And when the guilt appears, do not wrestle it to the ground. Just label it. Guilt, fear, planning, justifying. Then ask, what knows this? Return to the knower. 3 breaths. No performance. No spiritual drama. Just a quiet relocation from the judge to the capacity in which the judge appears. This is often enough to break the spell. Not forever, but for now. And now, let's say something important. Rest is not only sleep. Rest is any moment in which you stop converting your life into proof. A walk with no self-improvement agenda. A meal not eaten over a screen. An hour not measured for output. A conversation where you are not networking. A prayer not used as productivity. A quiet evening not turned into guilt. Rest, in this sense, is the return of non-transaction. You are not doing this to become more marketable. You are not pausing to become more efficient. You are letting life be non-instrumental for a moment. That can feel radical in a culture where everything must justify itself. But there is wisdom in it. A field cannot be harvested without season after season of replenishment. A musician cannot stay musical by treating silence as failure. A heart cannot remain open if every moment is recruited into proving worth. Likewise, your life cannot become sane if rest is always exiled to the far end of achievement. So perhaps the deeper shift is this. You stop asking rest to certify your value, and you stop asking productivity to substitute for peace. Work can be good. Discipline can be beautiful. responsibility can be loving. But none of these should be used to postpone your permission to soften. The body does not become more deserving of sleep by suffering more first. The nervous system does not become more deserving of calm by proving loyalty to tension. The child does not become more lovable by overachieving, and neither do you. This is where the old structure begins to loosen, not by force, not by adopting a new ideology, by seeing clearly that the one who must earn rest is mostly a thought image, a social mirror, a conditioned identity. Useful in some settings, yes. Absolute truth, no. You are not merely the role that produces. You are the open capacity in which roles rise and fall. And from here, the practical life can be lived with more sanity. You can still meet deadlines, still build, still create, still work hard. But work is no longer a moral payment plan for moments of stillness. It becomes one movement within life, not the court that decides whether life may be felt. That is freedom in a very ordinary form. Not glamorous, not loud, but deeply corrective. Now let's close with a simple card of the day. Notice, name, let. Notice the moment rest starts to feel conditional. Name what appears: guilt, pressure, fear, earning, not enough. Then let. Let the feeling be here. Let the thought be here. Let the body soften 1 degree without first winning a case in court. And ask, quietly, what knows this? Rest there for 3 breaths. Not to become passive, not to abandon your life, not to escape responsibility, but to remember that peace is not a trophy for the successful self. Rest is not a prize. Rest is part of being alive. And the more deeply you see what you are at 0 distance, the less you will need the judge's permission to come home to it.